have this mantra that has kind of become my motto. It's yes, yes, yes. I talk about this quite a bit. It comes from my daughter in this phase when she was saying no to everything, and we would dance with her and say, yes, yes, yes. It's gotten stuck in my head during races. And that's all about saying yes to the hard thing, saying yes to the next hard moment, and really leaning in when things get tough. And I think this applies to more than just triathlon, right? Like, so often in life, we're faced with these pivotal moments of decisions where we can either choose the hard path or we can give up on ourselves a little bit. So I remind myself of that yes mantra when I'm racing, that I am really there to challenge myself and say yes when things get tough.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to How She Does It, where we talk to women who are at the top of their game. And we literally ask them, how do they do it? I'm Karen Finerman. You may have seen me on CNBC's Fast Money. I'm a long-term Wall Street investor and a mom of 4. I'm also a big supporter of women in sports. As you know, I love the WNBA. I'm a huge fan of everything that's happening across our culture to shine a spotlight on and level the playing field for female athletes. My guest today, Chelsea Sodaro, is a marvel, and her athletic talent is undeniable. She was an All-American runner at UC Berkeley, and in her late 20s, she transitioned to the grueling sport of triathlons. That's pushing through 140 miles total of swimming, biking, and running, one after another. At the age of 33, she won the 2022 Ironman World Championship in Kona, Hawaiʻi. It was her first race at Kona, and it came a mere 18 months after giving birth to her daughter, Skylar. Since then, she has been an advocate for better support for postpartum female athletes and mental health more broadly, speaking very candidly about her own struggles. When we spoke, she was deep in training for the 2025 Ironman World Championship, her 4th time being invited to that premier competition. We chatted about what it's like, both mentally and physically, to take on the enormous challenge of an Ironman triathlon, her strategies for getting through the tough parts of a race, and what keeps her motivated. I love this conversation. I hope you enjoy it. First of all, Chelsea, thank you so much for being here on How She Does It. I am so thrilled to sort of meet you in person.
Thanks so much for having me. This is a total thrill for me too.
I know you're deep in training for the Ironman World Championship in Kona. What is your day like?
Yeah, my days are quite varied right now. I just got back from Kona. I go there for 2 weeks, about 5 weeks out from race day, and I do really intense, long training days, like up to 7 or 8 hours of training a day some days. And now I'm in California, in my hometown, and some days I'm still training like in a really intense, big way, and other days are quite easy as I'm allowing my body to absorb all the work I've put in.
Okay, so what is an easy day of allowing your body to absorb all the work you put in?
Well, actually I had a day totally off yesterday,
Wow.
Which I don't get very often in my line of work. We don't really get weekends or holidays, but I had a day totally off, which was really nice to kind of be a, quote, normal person for a few hours.
Okay, a normal person, I would think. You're not quite, but okay, I get what you're saying. Okay, so you're going into your fourth Ironman World Championship in Kona in a few weeks. What's your goal? How do you think about going into this?
I have a really good track record at these things when I can show up both physically and mentally healthy. And I'm in one piece. My training's going well. I'm really excited for it. And I have a sense of curiosity. I want to see what I can do and what's possible. Of course, a big, flashy end result would be amazing. But yeah, I'm just focused on the day-to-day, and I've enjoyed the process so much. And in that way, I feel like I'm a winner.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll be watching. Let's go back a bit in your career. So you went to the 2016 Olympic trials for the 10K, and it did not go as you wanted. So how did you get from there to doing triathlons?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride for me. I am a lifelong runner. I ran competitively in high school and college and post-collegiately, and like so many athletes, I had this big goal of qualifying for the Olympics. And I had the worst possible day on the most important day, which is the Olympic trials. I had a bit of an existential crisis. I'd worked so hard for a long time, but my body was kind of in shambles. My shoe deal was also coming up for renewal or not renewal. And these deals in track and field are really small unless you're winning global medals or qualifying for every Olympic and World Championships team, which I wasn't. So yeah, things are pretty tough. And I was watching the Olympic triathlon with my husband, and we knew a bit about the favorite. And he looked at me and he said, I think you could be really good at that. You're always cross training, you're always injured, swimming and biking. So why don't you just put all three together? And I thought it was a ridiculous idea, but I totally latched onto it. And I joined a professional training group 4 or 5 months later.
Okay, so the Ironman, that is the most famous triathlon, but not all triathlons are Ironmans. For the uninitiated, can you lay out what is a full Ironman?
Yeah, a full Ironman is a 3.8-mile swim in open water, so some sort of lake or ocean or big body of water, into a 112-mile bike ride, finished off with a marathon.
Okay. And you can get all that done in 8.5 hours or so.
That's right. Yeah. On a good day, we're between 8 and 9 hours for the women.
Okay. I've heard you describe the swim as the most challenging for you. What happens in the water when that many people jump in for the swim?
Yeah. I've actually worked really hard over the past couple of years to make the swim more of a weapon for me. But like so many adults who have to learn swimming or relearn how to swim, in my case, open water is really kind of terrifying. It's, this big mass start for the professional athletes, and women are on top of each other. Everyone wants to be in the same place at the same time. So I've often had this like drowning sensation at the beginning of a race. And it's quite terrifying when it's in the first 2 minutes, of an 8.5-hour race, when you have this like critical moment where you have to get it right. So I think that part is really intimidating for people. And I've had to work a lot on my physical and mental game to kind of make that into a strength of mine.
Okay, so I've heard you get kicked in the head and jellyfish and you're swallowing salt water. I mean, that sounds pretty bad.
It's pretty full on, yeah. I mean, sometimes you'll have people swimming on top of you, pulling legs and arms, getting your goggles ripped off. You just have to be prepared for anything to happen, because it may.
How does training help you manage that? How do you train for the swim? And how much do you train for the swim?
I'm in the water about 5 or 6 days a week, and I swim with people who are faster than me, which is the key, I think, to being or to improving at anything. Is to surround yourself with people who are better than you.
Okay, where do you find all the swimmers? Is it just your friends?
I live just outside of Boulder, Colorado, which is an endurance sports mecca, and I swim with an incredible swim group. And there are several Olympic medalists on the pool deck and world champions. I'm like a dime a dozen in Boulder. And so I have a great group there. I also have some close friends who are collegiate swimmers, and they will help me out. So I put myself in really uncomfortable environments. And then I also practice swimming in the open water. So I go to lakes when I'm in Colorado. I go to the ocean when I'm in Hawaii, and we do simulations to practice some things that I may experience on race day.
Okay, just the visual that popped into my head is so funny. It's like, okay, who wants to sign up for the Chelsea swim?
I was just at training camp in Hawaii, and I had a little group there supporting me, and we're walking to dinner, and I looked behind me, and I realized my support group is 4 dudes. And I thought, how perfect is this, that I have 4 men here at training camp supporting a female athlete? What a dream.
Yes, that is a dream. I love hearing that. Okay. So, all right, let's go to your 2022 Ironman win. I mean, that was enormous news. It's your rookie season, right? You've given birth 18 months prior to your daughter, Sky, and you have this life-altering event. Can you tell us what was that like to go from not obscurity, but from one of many athletes to the Ironman?
Yeah, that was certainly a wild time for me and my family. I went into that race as a total underdog. I wasn't invited to the press conference. I had zero media obligations before the race. I wasn't picked on anybody's list to be a contender. And I knew how well my preparation had gone, and I was getting very nervous the whole week before the race. I could almost barely eat because I was so nervous. And I think subconsciously I knew I was ready for a big performance. I actually have this ritual with my husband that we do before every big race, and it's totally ridiculous, but I think it helps put me in the right headspace and takes a little pressure off, where I look at him and I say, what happens if I don't have a good day today? And he says to me, everything's going to be fine. We'll still have our beautiful family. We'll still have our house. We'll still have our life. Things will just be as they are, and it will be beautiful. And I asked him that morning of the race, and it just totally freed me up to, I guess, enjoy my fitness and see what was possible for myself. I think it really put me in an open and growth kind of mindset. And I remember during the swim, I got in the perfect swim group from the very beginning, and I breathed over to my right, and I saw this huge rainbow, and I thought, what an incredible opportunity to be here having this day. And the whole day kind of unfolded in a way, and it wasn't without adversity, and it wasn't a perfect performance, but I think I just focused on myself and I executed, my best race, and that ended up being a win. And I didn't realize how big of a deal it was to win the Ironman World Championships until I did it. And also in the way that I did it, what with being handed, a baby at the finish line. And so it kind of became like mainstream media for a hot second. I was in the New York Times a few months later, and in People magazine, and in Self magazine, and on major sports media. And I think it moved a lot of people, especially women and moms, to really see what it looks like to pursue family and big professional and even physical goals.
So are you the second mom only ever to win an Ironman?
I'm the second mom to win the Ironman World Championships.
Uh-huh. Okay. So let's get into being a mom. What was your reaction to, okay, now I'm pregnant. Now we need to change things up?
Well, I'll backtrack a little bit. I started doing long distance triathlon, which is what I do now, in 2019. Although I was doing the half Ironman distance then, and I had this big breakout season. I was fourth in the world, and I thought I was kind of making real money for the first time, or in my mind as a professional athlete, I could pay my bills. And I was like, I've made it. It's all up from here. I'm doing it. I've found my niche. And then the pandemic hit, and I was 30 at the time, and it was clear very quickly that we weren't going to be racing for about a year. And I thought, I can just be training and chasing Strava segments, or I could maybe have a baby and pick up my racing career when racing opens up again. And that's what we ended up doing as I got pregnant in 2020. And I saw the pregnancy test, and I was terrified. I had very little maternity protection in any of my endorsement contracts. I was really scared that I wouldn't be re-signed, or that there wouldn't be a ton of financial opportunity for me. And the return to, physical fitness post-baby was a trip.
Mm-hmm. So I want to get to something very important about your career, which was, I think in that New York Times article, you were very open about your postpartum depression and bringing mental health issues to the forefront. And I'm wondering, as so many of us saw, Simone Biles withdrew from some events at the Olympics in 2021, citing mental health struggles. What did you think as you were watching that?
I had a lot of empathy and respect for her. I was in the throes of postpartum anxiety and depression at that time. I was watching the Olympics from my couch, trying to breastfeed a baby. So, while we were dealing with very, different struggles, I think I had a lot of empathy for what she was going through. And we as a society are so hard on our athletes. We expect them to be superheroes on the court, and we expect them to be perfect examples for our children off of the court, and we want them to be superheroes all of the time. And the moment they make a mistake, we have decided that they're washed up. And, there's been a lot of rhetoric like that around my own career throughout my highs and lows. And so when I see an athlete like Simone, I just think, wow, how brave is she? And what an incredible example she is setting for our daughters and our sons to be able to speak more openly about these things.
Mm-hmm. You've had a number of big athletes now, you included, who have talked about this. And I feel like society's sort of changing a little bit. Do you feel it's changing at all, the idea around mental health? Do you feel like it's changing?
Yeah, I definitely think there's less stigma around mental health in this country. What I'm most passionate about is, obviously related to my own experiences, which is these postpartum mental health disorders. And I believe very strongly that these are often a symptom of bigger issues, right? Like the lack of childcare, the lack of maternity and family leave, the lack of postpartum mental health. I honestly believe that if I had had access to better resources right after my daughter was born to help me navigate like all of our breastfeeding struggles, to help me navigate these early signs of, postpartum anxiety, if I had access or easier access to mental health resources, maybe it wouldn't have gone on for 2 years until I found myself in a very serious crisis. So I think there is definitely more awareness. There's definitely less stigma. But of course, the next step is creating policy change and more infrastructure so that we have access to these resources that we so desperately need.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's access to those resources, but even more simple, commonplace resources like childcare. And I remember reading about, your training and having to struggle to come up with childcare. How difficult was that?
Yeah, at the time, my husband was a full-time firefighter doing shift work. And when you're doing that kind of, very important work, you cannot be late. And I'm trying to train 30 hours a week. And so we got to the point where at the bare minimum, we needed somebody who could show up on time and who could keep our child alive. Couldn't find it. And we were on like 2 or 3 year long wait lists to get into daycare and to preschool. And ultimately, the decision that our family made was for my husband to leave the workforce. And, that's not super traditional. Oftentimes, it's the woman who is leaving the workforce, and there are all sorts of penalties and consequences that go along with that. And perhaps there will be consequences that we deal with as he probably will enter the workforce again at some point. But in order for me to pursue my career at the level that I'm aspiring to, that was the only real viable choice for us at the time.
Mm-hmm. So we talk a lot about women, money, and power. I'm always curious what people did with the first amount of money that they won. What did you do with that money?
I'll tell you the funniest story. In 2022, the year that I won the Ironman, I was a total underdog. And we had this joke in our house. And again, I'm like in the throes of postpartum anxiety. I'm like terrified of everything. And I was like, I need the safest possible car. What is the answer to this? An e-Hummer, because it's like a tank. It's, a little more environmentally friendly than a traditional gas guzzler. And I said, if I win the Ironman World Championships, LOL, how ridiculous is that? Then I will get myself an e-Hummer. And I did win the Ironman World Championships, and I am just too fiscally responsible to spend like $120,000 on an e-Hummer. So instead, I bought myself a kind of like souped up Toyota Highlander. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to go back to when you are in the triathlon. This is a long endeavor, 8.5 hours or however long it may be. What's going through your head?
On my very best days, I'm actually super nice to myself. I say a lot of words of affirmation. I'm encouraging myself, telling myself what a good job I'm doing, reminding myself to stay present in the moment. I have this mantra that has kind of become my motto. It's yes, yes, yes. It comes from my daughter in this phase when she was saying no to everything. And we would dance with her and say, yes, yes, yes. And it's gotten stuck in my head during races. And that's all about saying yes to the hard thing, saying yes to the next hard moment, and really leaning in when things get tough. And I think this applies to more than just triathlon, right? Like so often in life, we're faced with these pivotal moments of decisions where we can either choose the hard path or we can give up on ourselves a little bit. So I remind myself of that yes mantra when I'm racing, that I am really there to challenge myself and say yes when things get tough.
Mm-hmm. So I also wonder, do you dissociate from your body at all? I mean, some of it's got to be really painful.
Yeah, it is really painful. And you know what? That is inevitable in these races. And part of my job is to almost look forward to that moment and to embrace the pain. You know, if my legs are really getting sore, I will think about my breathing, or I'll think about what my arms are doing, or I'll just go to my breath or go to my mantra and not focus so much on what feels bad.
Mm-hmm. And how aware are you of the competitors around you?
Yeah, I'm quite aware of where I am in the mix of the race, but also I really try to focus on myself because that's all that I can control. And of course, I'm racing other people and I want to beat them and I want to win. But I find when I get the best out of myself is when I really am focusing on my personal excellence and doing the best I can in the moment.
Mm-hmm. So were you surprised at Kona when you won by, is it 9 minutes?
It was 8 or 9 minutes. You know, I had this really incredible training block. About 6 weeks out from the race, I started to feel like myself for the first time since I'd had my daughter. And my training started to click and I was doing these workouts that I'd never done before. But I never really did the math of what that meant on the race course. And so I was just, like I said, executing my best race. And that ended up being I think it was the second fastest ever time on the course then, and winning by a pretty big margin. And so I was surprised to win because that wasn't an expectation, but I also wasn't surprised by the actual performance, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does. I mean, that video of watching your last, I don't know, maybe it's a mile or so, there's nobody around. What's going through your mind as you're getting closer to the finish?
Yeah, you know, I took the lead about 7 miles into the marathon. So I was leading the race for 19 miles. And I remember when I took the lead, this photographer that I know said to me, he said, "Chelsea Sodaro, you are leading the Ironman World Championships." And then in my head, I just thought, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, there's a long way to go here. And I just kept on telling myself to stay in the moment. And I wouldn't allow myself to think about winning until I was about a mile out and I had a big lead. But gosh, during that last home stretch, I just felt all of the gratitude in the world. And this endeavor is really a family business for me. My husband is really involved in my career. My parents help us a lot with childcare. I'm actually at training camp with my dad right now, just me and my dad, and he's helping me with my sessions. And so when you win a big race like that, it is the ultimate way to say thank you to the people who have invested in you. And so it was for me such a joyful moment, but also for the people that I love so much, an opportunity to say thank you.
Uh-huh. So I know there was also a special moment in Kona when you're running past what they call the age competitors, the age groupers, one of which is my sister. So what happened? How did that feel when they yelled to you, "Do it for the moms"?
Yeah, gosh, it was so cool. That was a particularly special day because it was mostly women competing. And when I was running the last several miles kind of back into town where the finish line was, many of the amateur women were just starting the marathon. And so hundreds of women were yelling at me, "Do it for the moms, do it for Sky." And I felt so buoyed and supported by my community. And I think because of the way that I pursue my craft with a young child and a busy life outside of just my training, I often relate more to the amateur women than I do to my professional colleagues, because these amateur athletes are, man, they're amazing. They're, pursuing these super high level careers with multiple children and very, very busy lives. And I feel such a kinship with what we're all doing out there together.
I know my sister Stacy, single mom, and she was so thrilled with that win. to have a mother there. Triathlons, the race itself, it's a solo sport, and yet it is not solo at all. You have a huge collaboration. How big is your team? What do they all do?
It's definitely not a solo endeavor. And I grew up playing soccer, doing team sports, and I like to carry that philosophy into what I do now, even though it's just me out on the race course. I have an incredible group of people. We're super tight-knit. We all work really closely together. It feels like we win together and we lose together. I have a head coach who's an exercise physiologist who manages my whole training program. I have a physical therapist who writes my weight workouts and also treats my body to keep it in one piece. I have a sports psychologist. I have an aerodynamics specialist. I have a massage therapist. I have a swim coach. I have all these training partners. And my husband is the person that I honestly work closest with. And he helps manage a lot of my equipment and supports my training day to day. So it is a really incredible team. I never expected myself to be in a leadership role like this, or I didn't necessarily aspire to manage people, but what I'm learning as I go is how important it is to keep my team happy and to keep my team feeling inspired and motivated and excited about our collective goals. And I notice how my attitude really impacts everybody, and the way that I show up to training really impacts everybody's morale. So it's quite a unique work setting, but I think it likely translates to different workforces, right? In different careers, where if you're leading the charge, you better show up with a super positive attitude and be working to bring out the best in yourself and the best in other people around you.
That's so funny you say that, because I've heard that again and again from great leaders. How you hold yourself, how you carry yourself will determine how their day is. And that's a big responsibility. And it sounds like whether or not you ever intended to be a leader like this, you are, and that I guess is innate to you.
You know, I have my good days and my bad days, and it's definitely a work in progress. I'm by no means perfect, but I think that awareness is really important, and having that sense of responsibility is really important. And more than anything, I want the people that I work with to feel valued and appreciated, and like they're being compensated appropriately, and like they matter and they feel good about the work that they're doing. So I'm certainly learning and evolving as I go, but I guess that's like the ethos that I hope to bring to my work every day.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot's changed since your 2022 win. You found mental health support, you found medication that's working for you, you've changed trainers, you're working with a sports agency to build your brand. That's a whole enterprise in itself. And how is that all impacting the race part of it?
Yeah, man, I like to say I've had so many growth opportunities the last couple of years since I won this race. And sometimes I wish to have fewer growth opportunities. But I think I finally found the right group of people to surround myself with and the right team. I work with a sports management agency. They're called RXR. Based in New York City. They represent incredible athletes and sports personalities like Alex Honnold, Jimmy Chin, Emily Harrington, Kate Courtney, some incredible sort of outdoor icons. And they help me manage my sort of portfolio of brand partnerships. And then they're also working to, find speaking engagements for me or other opportunities to kind of expand my skill set, almost planning for post-career a little bit. And I think because I have this great team working to do these things with my business, I can really focus on the day-to-day of being an excellent athlete. And that's what this is all about for me right now. My primary work right now is racing really well. And so I delegate out a lot of my business so I can focus on the things that are most important to me in the moment.
Did you ever imagine that this career would give you this kind of opportunities to be a business?
Absolutely not. When I was 23, I had this incredible female coach. She was my first professional running coach. And she said to me, Chelsea, you need to figure out a way to stay in this game long enough so you can find out how good you can be. And I pinch myself that I'm 36 in the prime of my career with, a viable business and a family, still doing the thing that I love. So, it's interesting when you find a passion as a kid or really early in life and you manage to turn that into a career when you never intended to make any money off of it. It's quite wild.
All right. So after Kona coming up, you're hosting a weekend called Unlocking Yes. Can you tell us about it? What do you want to accomplish with it?
Yes. Thank you for asking. This event has been a long time in the making. It's a brainchild born out of long conversations with close friends and mentors while riding our bikes. And, I talk a lot about postpartum support and mental health. I wanted to do something more than talk about it. So I have this inaugural event. It's called Unlocking Yes. It's in St. Helena, California. It's a bike ride in wine country, a beautiful catered dinner from Chef Matt Acarino, who's this renowned chef from San Francisco. We're going to have a panel, which is moderated by one of my mentors. Her name is Naomi Clarkson. She's the head of marketing at Momentous. She's an incredible businesswoman in the outdoor space. And it will include me, Alicia Montano, who's an 800 Olympic medalist, and Magdalena Boulay, who is one of my running coaches, also a president of GU Energy Labs. And we'll be in conversation with our community, all to benefit For All Mothers, which is a nonprofit that gives grants to female athlete moms. They put lactation stations and childcare in races like the New York City Marathon. And they also consult with businesses on best maternity and family leave practices. So we're going to have this great gathering. We're going to raise a bunch of money for All Mothers and hopefully make a really positive impact towards their mission.
You look so excited just talking about it. So that's great. Okay, I do have one question though. Lactation stations during a race.
Yes.
To be running a race and thinking about that also.
I started racing coming back from my daughter when I was still lactating. And so, I would pump in basically at the start line and then throw away the milk and do the race. We are evolving. And for some of these really long races, like an Ironman, take 10 to 16 hours. And so they need to, express milk during that time. And actually in Kona this year is going to be the first year that they have a lactation station, which I'm really excited and proud about. But, I'm in conversation with my community and there's definitely a need of women asking for this resource.
I'm a little embarrassed as a mother. I never would have thought of it actually, but I should have, and you did. So thank you.
As women, it's amazing what we're willing to tolerate oftentimes. And sometimes it doesn't need to be so hard, right? And if we just have the support and these resources, we don't have to think about it. We can just do what we need to do and get on with the things that we care about.
So Chelsea, we ask all our guests, how do you do it? So literally, how do you manage your career and the life that you've worked so hard to build and your husband and Sky?
Yeah, I would say two things. First of all, I think when you have a lot of things that you care about in your life, it's all about prioritizing. It's not about balance. We're not doing all of the things at the exact same level all of the time. I'm really deliberate about the season that I'm in. In my off season, I spend a lot of time with my daughter. I'm doing all the pickups and drop-offs, and I'm very present when I'm getting ready for the Ironman World Championships. I'm all in on my racing and preparation, and I rely on a lot more help from my family. My husband is the primary parent right now. We're all committed to this big goal, and that looks like me going off to training camp and kind of getting in a monk mode, focusing on the big day. I guess that leads to the other aspect, which is I do not do this alone. I have so much help. My parents just moved down the street from us, so we have a ton of family support. My husband is a stay-at-home dad right now. We have a great community who pitches in, and I've learned to ask for help when I need it so that I can show up for my work in a really big way and also be present with my family.
That's a huge thing, learning to ask for help when you need it. So important. Chelsea, it's time for our lightning round. We have some fun questions for you, a few would you rather type, and all I ask is that you just give the first answer that pops into your head.
Okay,
ready?
Great. Yes.
Okay. Would you rather race in the heat or race in the rain?
In the heat.
Okay. Swim for fun or run for fun?
Run for fun.
Okay. Chariots of Fire or Forrest Gump?
Forrest Gump.
Okay. Training with music or no music?
No music.
What is your favorite way to unwind?
I am a big reader, actually. So, yeah, I love to read.
Okay. What are you reading right now?
My dad and I have a book club together.
Oh, that's
and
so cute.
he was a history teacher. So we're about to read this book about the Titanic, about the captain of the Titanic.
Okay. Interesting. All right. What is the best way to celebrate a win? Do you have a ritual?
Oh, man. Champagne with my friends and family.
Okay. Would you rather laugh uncontrollably or be moved?
I would say I would rather laugh uncontrollably, but I am like a deeply feeling person. So more often I'm probably just moved.
Okay. Preferred kids show, Miss Rachel or Bluey?
Bluey.
Okay. What is the biggest hazard you've encountered in the ocean?
Well, probably waves. You know, they tell you it's only a 6-foot wave and that sounds not like a big deal. And from shore, it looks fine. But when you're actually out there with the 6-foot wave, it is massive.
Okay. What is the best thing you say to yourself on a tough day of training?
You can do hard things.
All right. The last one, 2 parts. First, what's the best investment you ever made and the worst? But investment could be anything. It could be an investment or a class or a time or something.
Yeah. I think it has really been my marriage. You know, my husband and I started dating when I was 21, and I didn't start triathlon until I was 27. And we've pursued this whole career together through ups and downs. And there have been so many times that I have wanted to quit. And he is the ultimate support and cheerleader. And I absolutely would not still be doing this if it weren't for him.
First of all, that's a great answer. Interestingly, you're the only one who's answered that so far.
Really?
Yes, but every time you describe your husband, he sounds like such an extraordinary guy, and that it's so obvious this is something you've done together. And what was your worst investment? That's
an interesting question. You know, I don't really live with a whole lot of regret. Most of my experiences have been opportunities for me to learn. I am an independent contractor in my business partnerships, and I have a lot of choice in who I partner with for the most part. And I've made a couple of bad choices, and ultimately, like, the brand values didn't align with mine. And so I pay much closer attention now when I'm having those initial conversations with companies. And I look at who has a seat at the table, who am I talking to, and, you know, these initial kind of courting conversations. And are there women on the leadership team? Am I meeting with women when we're talking about what I'm looking for in a partnership and what our values are? So yeah, probably some of the initial partnership decisions I made right after I won Kona weren't the best fit, but I've learned from those and have had the opportunity to pivot to better opportunities now.
All right, that is a really good answer. And you didn't have to say e-Hummer.
Exactly.
So Chelsea, thank you so much. This isn't a question. I just wanted to tell you a new word that I learned today in your honor, which is pomaikai.
Okay.
Good luck. Good luck in Hawaiian.
I love it. Thank you.
I really appreciate the time you spent with us today.
Thank you so much, Karen.